Good evening, and welcome to Hello, It's Us, Perspectives on Inclusion. This program is dedicated to educating the general public about issues that are important to the people with disabilities in our community. But we believe that you will realize as you watch this program that those very same issues are important to everyone, since people with disabilities are such an integral part of the general public. Hello, It's Us is brought to you through a collaboration between the University of Iowa Center for Disabilities and Development, Uptown Bill's Coffee Shop, and our good friends here at Public Access Television. My name is Mike Hoenig. I work at the University of Iowa Center for Disabilities and Development, and I serve as one of the co-hosts for Hello, It's Us.
I'm the other co-host, Keith Ruff. I'm retired. I'm still a disability advocate, but I'm writing a book, and Mike, we got the cover done.
All right.
Yes.
Another step.
Yes.
So, well, hopefully in the next, how many months do you think we'll
I think 4 or 5.
All right.
And Mike, should we tell the audience what they're going to see tonight?
Absolutely. So this is a really exciting time for us. We're for the next 2 weeks, we're going to be coming to you live from the 2018 Johnson County ADA celebration. We now take you to the event where Keith and I will serve as co-emcees.
Yes.
Together with Keith, we're gonna hopefully guide this process through the next hour and a half or so. I want to thank everybody for showing up, for all of our presenters. I think we have 16 exhibitors. I know we've got a number of sponsors, and I don't want to miss anybody. I don't have a list. I know that the City of Iowa City, as always, is a big help. And I'd also especially like to acknowledge all of our planning committee members. I sort of got into the process late, but it's been really wonderful working with everybody. And we'll have a chance later on if any of you want to get up and speak. But we really appreciate all the work of our planning committee members, our sponsors, and all of our exhibitors that have taken the time on a Saturday to help us celebrate the greatest civil rights legislation ever for people with disabilities. So at this time, I'm going to turn the mic over to Keith Ruff, who I think everybody knows here in Iowa City. And Keith, you're going to go ahead and welcome them and bring the mayor up.
Everybody, thank you for coming. Now we're gonna have the mayor present the proclamation for 2018. Mayor Ruff, please come up.
Okay, can everybody hear me okay? It's my great pleasure to be here with you today. And I was just talking with Harry over there, remembering that normally it's 95 and humid and sunny, so we're all sweating profusely. Not today, we lucked out. All right, so it's my pleasure to read a proclamation to you, which I also read at our Tuesday night council meeting. Whereas the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, was passed on July 26, 1990 to ensure the civil rights of individuals with disabilities. And whereas Iowa City, Iowa affirms the principles of equality and inclusion for persons with disabilities as set forth for the state of Iowa and embodied in the ADA, the laws of the state of Iowa, and ordinances of Iowa City. And whereas numerous organizations in Iowa City work with constituents and communities to bring forth the promise of hope and freedom that is envisioned by the ADA. And whereas the 2010 U.S. Census reported that nearly 1 in 5 Americans have a disability. And whereas the ADA benefits all Americans, as nearly everyone will live with a disability at some point in their lives. And whereas on July 21, 2018, an event celebrating the 28th anniversary of the passage of the ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act, Promise and Progress, will be held at the Iowa City Ped Mall from 10 a.m. Here we are. Now therefore, I, James A. Throgmorton, Mayor of Iowa City, hereby proclaim July 21, 2018 as Americans with Disabilities Act Awareness Day and urge community members to participate in activities that celebrate and honor the spirit of the act. I'll say just a couple of three other things. One, I was just visiting with Senator Jeff Merkley from the state of Oregon. He will be speaking with you in just a few minutes. It's a great conversation. I enjoyed it enormously. And as we walked over here, we were talking about former Senator Tom Harkin, who played such an instrumental role in adopting the ADA in 1990. We're all very proud of our former senator for that work. The other thing I'm conscious of is the point about how the ADA benefits all Americans, as nearly everyone will live with a disability at some point in their lives. So I can tell you I'm almost 74 years old, and I am experiencing a variety of disabilities. Now there's a surprise, right? How could that possibly be? And so the point is exactly correct. We all need to be very aware of the fact that all of us are likely to experience some form of disability at some point. And we just need to be very conscious of that. So anyhow, it's my great pleasure to be here with you today to help celebrate the ADA, and thanks to all of you for coming.
Hello everyone, my name is Andrew Tubbs and I am the Artistic Director for Combined Efforts here at the company, and it's our extreme pleasure to be here today as we celebrate the passage of the ADA. Combined Efforts is a visual and artistic company that has a mission of artistic excellence through the purposeful collaboration of artists with and without disabilities, and the only way that we can do that is through intrinsically inclusive programming, and that means accessibility at its heart, which is why we take the ADA extremely seriously. If you look at theater companies, if you look at movies, if you look at TV, you will see a lot of disabled characters, and unfortunately a lot of these characters perpetuate disabled stereotypes. And I don't think this is because Hollywood hates disability or anything like that. I believe it's because the arts are inaccessible and there are not enough disabled individuals in these artistic programs to counteract these stereotypes. This is why I love working with Combined Efforts, so that we can offer these opportunities for disabled individuals to tell their stories. Which is why I'm so excited about our upcoming play entitled Worthless. It will be performing at the at Iowa City High, the Upstead Theater, July 27th through the 29th. There are 4 shows, but what this show essentially does is it takes all of your favorite fairy tales and tells the story of the secondary characters in the show. Everyone that has been passed over, and they are called worthless. And it is only through these individuals claiming their story, asserting their advocacy, asserting their right to be heard, that they are able to seize their own story and essentially save their world from the giants. So there are a lot of disabled messages that come across in the show, and I'm so excited to talk about the show and have a short performance by our actors. So thank you so much for having us here. I want to introduce Michael Levy and Ivor Hoenig as as Wolf, the boy who cried wolf, and Hans from Hans and Gretel as Hans tells the story of how he came to live in Worthless, because society insists on the ability to understand social cues.
Told me things, they told me what to do in order to get Gretel to marry me, but none of it went so well, and how she hates me.
Like why?
Well, it's good enough. My mother told me to be very careful with her gifts. Once Gretel gave me a pin, but then I lost it in some hay. My mother said that I should have stuck it in my slipper.
Guys do better pockets, it's true. Well, that seems like good advice.
But then she gave me a knife, then I stuck this knife in my sleeve, but that got my shirt all cut up.
Knives in your better pockets, it's true.
Again, a mother told me I should have put it in my pocket. And then Gretel gave me a goat, and I proceeded to try to stuff it in my pocket, but it smothered to death. My mother said that I should have held it by a rope. How was I to know?
Oh dear.
But anyway, Gretel gave me a ham. Then I tied the rope to said ham, tied it around, and then dogs ate it. And then Mother told me that I should have held it on my head. But then Gretel gave me a cap. And then I pulled the cap on top of my head, but it started kicking, and it kicked me so hard that I let it go and it ran off. Mother said I should have tied it to the stable.
Oh dear.
But then I tied Gretel to the stable instead, and then she said she wouldn't marry me anymore.
Oh, it's a tired of the game on the place that's off his head.
Sleeves, pockets, head, mouth, stables. How is anyone supposed to keep track of all of that?
Context is hard for you.
I just wish Mom would tell me the one thing that works for everything, everybody, all the time.
Oh, my friend, I'm afraid there's no such thing like that.
Really?
The right thing changes from person to person, from moment to moment, and from place to place.
That's a very bad system.
Perhaps.
What is the right thing to do when we are attacked by giants?
I don't know, Hans. I wish I knew. But I believe you can help. That's right.
Me? Truly? For truth, not to lie?
Or true.
Well, if it's true, then I will help.
That was wonderful. We're going to move on, and now we're going to have some very interesting speakers here. The first one is somebody that I've just gotten to know within the past couple of months, actually. Her name is Erin K. So Erin, if you're in the ballpark here, if you can start coming up this way here. One of her many hats is the manager of the Johnson County Walks. And for anybody that has been involved with that, it's a wonderful awareness-raising opportunity. What I recently learned, I took a peek at Erin's resume and discovered that they raised over $225,000 in 2017 for the walk, and that is 2017 and 2018. All right, I'm being corrected. That's good. So Erin has been involved in many other things. She served as an advocate for people with disabilities, for WellCare of Iowa. That had to be an interesting job. Worked as an AmeriCorps Vista leader for Hunger Free Iowa, and worked with at-risk student programs for a regional office of education. So, and that's just a few of the accomplishments that she has. I think one of the things that I've learned very quickly about Erin is that all of those jobs and all those opportunities, I'm sure some of them she's not gotten paid for, but they're about empowering people with disabilities. So, and she's worked tirelessly on the ADA Celebration Planning Committee work to make this event come to life today. So without further ado from me, I'd like to turn this over to Erin, who's going to talk to us, and then introduce our special guest who gets the award for traveling the furthest to be here today.
Thank you, Keith. I don't want to outdo you here, but I'm standing awkwardly. I apologize. Hi, everybody. How's everybody doing? Are we pumped up today? Man, I'm pumped up. Thank you, Mike. That was very flattering and very sweet of you. Yes, currently I work for Johnson County, which, if you're not familiar, is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And I don't want to bore you guys to tears because that's not my deal. I like to have fun. I like to get people pumped up and excited. So I think we should do a little bit of a cheer because I love to do cheers. Can we say something? along the effect of disability and empowerment today. All right, so on the count of 3, disability and empowerment, disability and empowerment, disability and empowerment, yeah! And I love seeing all the visibility today. This is so critical. It is critical that you guys came out today, despite transportation barriers that I have myself, despite access to curb cuts, despite all the barriers that we may face. You guys are here today and visible, so give yourself a pat on the back for that, because that is amazing. The ADA for me has enabled me to go to college, get a degree, get a job that pays me a living wage. Oh man. It gives me access to health care. And I will continue, as I told the Board of Supervisors this past Thursday, I will continue to hold Iowa City accountable to make sure that people with disabilities in this community have the best access to care and transportation and all the services that they need. So I will continue to do that, no matter how long it takes, whether I'm blue in the face by the end of all of it. I don't think I need to tell anybody with a disability, whether it's visible or invisible, that we still have quite an uphill battle with the ADA. And we have to be voices for ourselves. Thank you so much, Iowa City, for giving a platform to people with disabilities. We appreciate your representation, but we need to be able to represent ourselves. Alright, like I said, I'm not going to bore you guys to death. I really don't want to. Now we've got our main event. The son of a millwright, Senator Jeff Merkley, has spent his life in nonprofits and public service, fighting to ensure that every American has the chance to thrive. After working for Habitat for Humanity and serving in the Oregon State House, Jeff was elected to the U.S. Senate in 2008. Throughout his time in the Senate, Jeff has stood shoulder to shoulder with the disabled communities, working alongside Iowa's legendary Senator Tom Harkin. Oh my God! He's very excited about Senator Tom Harkin here. He's got to protect and serve the Americans with Disabilities Act. And most recently, when the future of Medicaid was on the line, Jeff fought alongside disabilities rights groups like ADAPT to protect the coverage that is essential to the quality of life for millions of Americans. Jeff has built a career around tearing down barriers and trying to give every person the opportunity to contribute and pursue their dreams. Please welcome me and join me, Senator Jeff Merkley.
Greetings, everybody. I'm delighted to be able to stop by and say hello and help celebrate the now 28th anniversary of the Americans with Disability Act. Yay. And combined efforts, I hope everybody got the time and place for the play. Do you want to share that again?
Worthless is going to be at Iowa City High at Upstat Theater, July 27th through 29th. There are 4 performances. There is only going to be about 60 or 70 spots in the audience, so make sure that you get your tickets now because they will go. So thank you guys so much. Thank you so much for letting us have this opportunity.
Absolutely, and so I'm thinking about this, the changes we've had in a generation in viewing the issue of opportunity for all. And many of my perspectives were forged through the eyes of my father. My father was a family that was homesteading in Colorado. And when he was a baby, he had farm milk that was unpasteurized. And there's a form of tuberculosis that you can get through farm milk called bovine tuberculosis. And it attacks your bones. And it particularly commonly attacks the spine. And so when my father was 2, his spine collapsed. He lost the ability to walk. And his family from that homestead in Colorado sent him off to a children's hospital. And he was there, basically recovered. There was no treatment. But his body overcame the tuberculosis, and his back got stronger, and he regained the ability to walk until he was 12. And it was about when he was 12 that his basically his spine collapsed again, and so he was paralyzed. So he went back. They sent him back to Utah. Meantime, they had moved to Arizona because the doctors had said that would be a better environment for the issues related to tuberculosis, though normally you think of that in the context of lungs, not spine. But while he was there, family had no idea of whether his ability to walk would be compromised for the balance of his life. It seemed most likely it would be. That was the common outcome. My father took from this experience a vision that nobody is a second-class individual in this world. Because at that time, when someone was an individual with a disability, much of society said, well, you're not really in the mainstream. We're not going to necessarily expect much out of you in your life. We're not going to lower barriers for you. And it was an attitude that was unacceptable. And it translated for my father from not just an attitude about making sure that everyone, every individual, with or without a disability, is treated as a first-class individual. Nobody's in the second class. And not just for disabilities, but for other issues, that nobody should be treated poorly because of their race, or their gender, or their sexual orientation. And so it's this vision of opportunity and value for all. Well, that vision has come a long ways in our generation. And Tom Harkin, when he put forward the Americans with Disabilities Act, I think we can call him the father of the ADA. He did something fabulous for millions and millions of Americans, an example. And he was there when we worked to improve it and make it work better many years later, so kind of round 2. And I'm sure he's going to be contributing to the conversation about the changes we yet need to make. Well, that vision, that world, we still have work to do. And I wanted to mention to you all a couple of pieces of legislation, one that I don't like and one I do like. Now, there is a bill that's in the House. It's called House Bill 620 that takes the teeth out of the ADA. And it has passed the House. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure it does not pass the U.S. Senate. And then there is another piece of legislation. It's called the Disability Integration Act. And this is really to reduce the bias that sometimes exists in some parts of the country towards institutionalization. The act is designed to give a federally protected right to real choice in how services and support are received. And some of the things in this act, it clarifies in statute that every individual who is eligible for long-term services and support has a federally protected right, that's what I was referring to, assures that states and other LTSS funders provide services and support in a manner that allows individuals with disabilities to live in the most integrated setting, including their own home, and have maximum control of their services and support, and to lead an independent life. And to establish a comprehensive state planning requirement comparable to the transition planning process required under the ADA that includes benchmarks, and to require states to address the need for affordable, accessible, integrated housing that is independent of service delivery. This act was introduced by the Democratic leader of the House, Senator Schumer, and I am a proud co-sponsor of this, and I want to see this on the floor, I want to see it debated, and I want to see it passed. You know, my father was fortunate at that children's hospital, and that they did an experimental surgery. And they were able to take, this is during the Great Depression, take some slivers of bone out of his leg, put them into his back, and put him in a turtle shell cast for a year. He basically laid flat for a year. He gained 100 pounds. He lost ability, well, all muscle tone, yes, he will, when you're laying there for a year. But there was something powerful at that moment in that he read 1 to 2 books a day. And he listened to the radio all day long. And so he was learning about affairs all through the world. And those things also added to his determination to convey this sense that God smiles on all of us, cares for all of us. That each and every person needs to have full opportunities in our society, and America needs to set an example for the world. And we are. ADA has become such an example. But there was an international treaty on Americans, well, on disabilities that we voted on while I was in the Senate, and I am embarrassed to say that it failed. And Bob Dole had come to the floor of the Senate in his wheelchair to say, let's get this done. And it didn't get done. So let's add that, ratifying that treaty to the list. So I want to thank you all for being part of this conversation, for being part of the vision of opportunity and equality for all. And let me add that along with the ADA, we need to make sure we maintain and improve the ACA, the American Health Care, Obamacare. You know, there's a fellow, a lot of people wrote me letters during the debate over health care and the effort last year in 2017 to eliminate it. And one young man, also named Jeffrey from Beaverton, he said, I'm paralyzed from the shoulders down, yet I have my master's, my own place, a good job, but I also depend upon Medicaid. He said, that's necessary for the personal attendant care. It's necessary for me to be able to work and even to be able to live. And so good health care is also a complement. And let's make sure that we sustain what we have and that we make it simpler. What about a simple, seamless system of health care where you get care when you need it just by virtue of living here in the United States, hand in hand with fighting for maximum opportunity for all. And thank you so much for inviting me to stop by and say hello. And I'm delighted to be an advocate with all of you fighting in the U.S. Senate.